Hi, and welcome everyone. Today I am excited to have Laura Powers with me. Laura is a celebrity psychic. She's a medium and an author. So thank you, Laura. It's good to have you here.
Thanks for having me.
You're welcome. I guess if you don't mind, start just with a little bit about your own background, your own story, and how you've gotten to do the work you're up to today.
Sure. So I actually grew up being very psychic, but not really understanding it. And I thought I was crazy. People didn't see the things that I saw. I could tell because they didn't react. I grew up seeing and sensing ghosts and other beings. And I remember when I was probably about 7 years old, asking my mother if she saw things. And based on her response, I knew she had no idea what I was talking about.
Yeah.
So I basically decided not to talk about it. It seemed like, whatever it was weird, it was different, and it was safer just not to mention it. That said, I struggled a lot because I share with people that our minds, our lives, and our energy fields are very much like a garden. If you don't plant flowers, what shows up automatically were the weeds. So I had a lot of weeds in my life, spiritually speaking, a lot of ghosts, a lot of dark entities, and unpleasant things. And I was just trying to sort of push through it. And it wasn't until I was actually in college that a family friend described a ghost that I'd seen but never told anybody about, that I was like, oh, I'm not crazy because I don't think he can see my hallucination. That said, it was still frightening to me because I didn't know how to do at that time in my life. I didn't have any teachers in my life, so I didn't have any tools to manage it. So I did the only thing that I knew how to do at that time, which was to shut down. So I basically was like, I don't see anything, I don't hear anything, la 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 la, and just tried to block it out as best as I could. And I actually did, to a great degree, block it out in the sense that I stopped hearing and sensing a lot of things. But everything, of course, was still there because I wasn't really dealing with a problem. I was just ignoring it. So fast forward many years, and I was in a very tough situation. I was in a bad marriage, a very toxic situation with my ex-husband. I was unemployed. I was physically ill. I had several medical diagnoses and was 50 pounds overweight. I was on sleeping pills. Basically every aspect of my life was a mess.
Wow.
And I had done all of the traditional things. I had gone to doctors and I'd gotten some diagnoses, but even some of those things I self-diagnosed because I wasn't falling within the normal parameters
Mm-hmm.
of, what the diagnoses normally were, and was really struggling. I just felt lost. And so I went to a psychic looking for guidance, and she said to me, well, when you shut out your psychic information, you shut out what you needed to know, which made sense. And of course, I hadn't told her that I'd been psychic and I'd shut it out. And so that started the process for me of setting the intention to open it back up, and then learn how to manage what was there and recognize my gifts and not just try to push them away, which is what I've been trying to do up until that point. So I really set out doing this as a self-healing process. I never thought I was going to be a professional psychic by any means, but as I got through it, part of the practice readings would be to work with other people, and they'd started to say, wow, you're really good at this. And so it happened pretty organically and naturally that I just started to do readings for people, and then word spread, and it just became a thing. And I kind of went into it kicking and screaming because it wasn't in my self-concept at the time. Like, my master's degree is in poli-sci, and I was very analytical in my approach. So it took a while for me to embrace it. But once I did, things went really well. So that's essentially what led me into this work. And since then, I just decided I really wanted to help others learn and share what I had learned, because it totally transformed my life. And I went from literally being physically sick, feeling overwhelmed, feeling lost, struggling in pretty much every way, to completely transform my life and really having a great life and enjoying it. And so I'm passionate about empowering others in terms of spiritual and psychic gifts.
Wow. And so what you mentioned about all those things you were facing, you were going through a divorce, you had physical illness, you had weight gain, you had all these kind of like trials and tribulations and blocks,
Yeah.
if you will, in a way. So when I'm talking about the Phoenix Rising, again, this very much ties into that concept of,
Right.
of being stuck or limited or restricted in some fashion that's not allowing us to ascend and to become more of who we are. And that's a perfect example of how you finally reaccepted, but you became reacquainted with those natural gifts that you are, that you came in with, and that we all come in with. I think we're just shut down to whatever degree, right? So
Absolutely.
that's what this is really about, is getting back into that fullness and those just the awarenesses of who we really are, the fullness and the totality of who we are as beings here.
Yeah, and it's certainly during that process, I mean, it wasn't easy. There were many times where I literally felt like I was breaking apart. In many ways I was being reborn, being recreated, but all the things that were not serving me were coming off or being left behind. And so I think there's a lot of people going through that process right now, and it can seem painful and scary because you don't know where you're going and what's going to happen, and it's a new process. So if there's anyone going through that, just know that you will get through it, and you'll be better, because a lot of times we approach this from fear because it is unknown, but it's most often going to be so much better once you get through it on the other side than it was ever to begin with.
Yeah, thank you for highlighting that, because that's been my experience, and I've talked to a lot of other people who have said that. And it's all these degrees, right? Like, it's a continual process, and we'll get through something and then the next step will come, and it gets easier, I think, as we go along, because we've learned from our experience and like what it takes, and like we build that muscle and things keep evolving for us like that. There's something I particularly wanted to ask you about, and that is being empathic and the sensitivity that I know myself, and I think a lot of other people as part of this process are coming more and more into, in terms of being out in the world and how to be an empath and take care of ourselves properly in that way.
Yeah, a lot of people are empaths and don't even realize it. So just in case you've maybe heard the term but don't know in depth what it means, an empath is someone who is basically a psychic feeler. You feel psychically. You get information from the outside world, from other people, from the environment that you're in through your psychic senses, and you feel whatever they or it or whatever is feeling. And this is tricky because like with clairvoyance, because I'm a clairvoyant, which means I can clearly tell, okay, that is not me, especially if someone has confirmed that they also sense things. But with empaths, a lot of times they never have that automatic awareness that what I'm feeling is not mine. Right? We tend to assume what I feel is mine. And then when you're an empath, that's actually not true at all. You feel what your sister feels and your neighbor feels and the ghost that's standing next to you feels, and
Exactly.
the residual energy that everyone else has left behind feels, et cetera, et cetera. And so that's a very important thing to become aware of, is and just to, whether you think of yourself as an empath or not, is just to start with the awareness that what you feel may not be coming from you. And once you come to that realization, that's when you can start to determine, okay, what is mine, and start to check in. And that's when I think the real healing and magic starts to happen.
Yes, I would agree with that. Being very empathic myself, I've gone through these stages and feelings, and I think it's only getting more so. So it's really important, I think, for people waking up, because that's essentially what's happening. You're waking up to those sensitivities. And it's not always easy to go out in the regular world. And although the regular world is changing as part of this, it's right now I feel like it's still in this process where, as a humanity, we're still like, it's still fairly new, I think, in a lot of ways, this awakening process that we're experiencing. So this is some of the bumps in the roads. These are some of the bumps in the roads that I've experienced, and a lot of people have talked about.
Yeah, exactly. It is a part of the opening and, spiritual awareness process. Some tips I would give for people if they think that they're an empath would be to, first of all, like I mentioned before, stop and check in. Is this mine? Sometimes you can even just kind of ask yourself, is this mine, what I'm feeling? And sometimes you'll intuitively get a yes or no. And that's already helpful. The other thing, if you're not getting a yes or no and you're still unclear, you can check in with yourself and use logic and reasoning, and also ask for intuitive information. Is there a reason for me to feel this way? Meaning, like, if I'm feeling very sad or frustrated or whatever, has there been a trigger? Did someone say something to me which would make me feel this way? Or is it just, I feel this way and I can't explain it? If you can't explain it, it's very likely that you're picking up on something from an outside source that's not yours. And this is a really important thing to pay attention to, because you cannot change how someone else feels. And I know that sounds simple, but it's quite profound in terms of being an empath, because what happens with a lot of empaths is they take in this energy from outside of themselves and they're absorbing it. And then they're like, okay, I'm trying to change my emotion. I'm trying to, be more peppy or, whatever it is. Mm-hmm. But the truth is, if it's someone else's, you can't change it. You can only release it. So once you've identified that you've taken in something that's not yours, doing a grounding and clearing meditation, asking the angels to clear you, visually, or set the intention to return that energy to wherever it came from, is very, very powerful, because if you're just trying to change yourself, it's basically not going to work.
I love that you made that distinction and that you're giving these practical tips, because these are really valuable. And I've said this before on this series, but a lot of what we're speaking about is sort of, it's new, it's unknown, it's esoteric, it's sort of nebulous a lot of the time. And to have these like guideposts and these tips really help. They've helped me for sure. And I think this just sort of gives us a balance between something the mind can grapple with or grab onto, and then let the experience sort of flow in that process, but still have some idea of what's happening and some idea of how to, just make it a little bit easier for us to go through this.
Yeah. And in many cases, people just haven't even gotten this basic information. Oh, check in, is this mine or not? I mean, it's very simple, but here's the thing: in our lives, we're not given any sort of psychic, intuitive, or energy tools. So you don't go to elementary school and they're like, okay, here's how to meditate. Here's how to check in with your energy. Here's the different psychic abilities, So we kind of have to start a lot of times on our own from square one with some very basic concepts that may be completely new to us because they haven't been introduced in traditional society.
Right. And that brings up a really good point. I was wondering what your thought is on this, and I have my thoughts too, but why do you think this is such a part of who we are? It's such a natural, it's our essence, and it's just who we are in our hearts and souls, this perception and this extrasensory ability. Why do you think it's shut down? I mean, why, for people listening, I think a lot of people listening will be open to it in this series, but just to sort of look at it from the other angle, why is it shut down to start with? And it's interesting how we're coming back full circle, I think, into accepting who we really are with it all.
I think there's a lot of dark forces at work, and I say light and dark. They're just literally kind of two halves of a whole different kinds of energies that thrive on certain things that are not good for us. And one of this is this disconnection from ourselves, this sort of industrialization, this removal of emotion. There's a book I can recommend if you're interested in this. It's called The Conversation with the Devil by Napoleon Hill. And he goes into a lot of this, like kind of how the devil works. And it's basically an allegorical conversation with the devil. And one of the aspects is this sort of systemization, purely analytical, separating people from their own emotions and getting them to just kind of do whatever is the standard process. So I think, unfortunately, a lot of our school system just does this kind of indoctrination. It's almost like preparing people for, work in factories or something. It's like being a cog in a system. And anything that discourages that is discouraged. So if you are checking in for yourself, using your intuition, using critical thought on a higher level, that doesn't go well with this kind of industrialized system, which is all about just like doing processes, right? Exactly. Which is almost machine-like, but we aren't machines. We are feeling and thinking, and we have souls and all of that. So I think that's part of it. And a lot of the people in power thrive on that. If a lot of the things that are happening right now are tearing down these like economic structures, for example, which thrive on that. So it's a complex question, but I think when you look at it from a kind of spiritual perspective, that basically the dark elements have wanted to shut people off from themselves and from their own guidance, because then they can further their own gains.
Exactly. My thoughts on that are exactly in alignment with what you just said. And it comes again to fear and separation versus the love and unity.
Yeah.
And I've said that so many times during this series, but really that's like such a fundamental aspect of this, of what we've been through, the fear and separation, and what we're coming back to now, which is more unification and the oneness and the love that we have and that we can connect with other people.
Yeah, and an empowering of ourselves, that we don't need something from somebody else. That's the message has come through a lot of different sources, that we are weak, that we are disempowered, that we don't have what we need. And the truth is, once you have some tools, once you learn, knowledge really is power, especially in this realm, that really almost anything is possible.
Exactly. And that's such a beautiful thought. Anything is possible because there are so many possibilities, and we're just like waking up to a little taste, I think, of to what those really are. And
Right.
that's just, to me, that's miraculous. And it's so amazing. It's just so exciting. I also wanted to ask you, what is your opinion about how the spirit realm and the other dimensions, in terms of how we interact, or they interact with us, and how that might fit into this whole awakening process? What are you seeing with your clients, for example, with that?
Gosh, I mean, yeah, it's a huge part of this. I think what's happening for a lot of people is the sudden awareness of this other realm, these other dimensions, the spiritual aspect, connecting with us more in more obvious ways, or not being able to deny it. And I think this is it's a good thing, but if you don't have the tools, it can feel a little scary. And I think with all the vibrational changes happening on the earth right now, it's basically getting harder and harder to ignore.
Exactly. Uh-huh.
That it's there. And so I see a lot of people, especially like my clients, new clients coming to me, that it's like all of a sudden they're having really psychic experiences, and they haven't before. And part of that is their own internal shift, but it's also just because the world is shifting its vibration as a whole. And suddenly these things are happening that are now in their perception of awareness. And so, yeah, it's really exciting. And so if this is happening, if you're watching this, just know that it's a blessing. And it might seem like a curse if you don't know what it is that you're being seen or how to handle it. But the truth is, all you just need to then do is learn some tools, and then it's wonderful.
Exactly. Yes. You took the words right out of my mouth, because I feel it happening individually with myself and with others around me. And I mean, we're all part of this whole. So it's really this global, like this shift in humanity. And this is part of that. It's like opening, like the veils are dropping beyond the five senses. Things are coming in, and it's happening faster and faster, and more maybe overtly than it has in the past. It's just like, this is the trend, the momentum that I see happening. Right. And this is a huge part of it, because it's so much about expansion. So we're expanding beyond ourselves, and we're connecting into that. And I also want to mention something to you. I don't know if you've seen this or not, but it's really interesting. About a year and a half ago, I started noticing some of my own family members actually passed away. And it was about a year's period worth of time where once a month I knew of someone who died. And it was about half those people were close to me, and about half were friends, parents of friends, or children of friends. But still, it was like every month somebody passed away. And that was my experience. But I think too, it feels like there's been a lot of people passing away and leaving this realm.
Yeah, I mean, let's look at this last year, like all of the amazing celebrities that passed, Prince, David Bowie. I mean, Debbie Reynolds, and there's just so many. It's like you can't even like list them all. And then that's happening, not of course just with celebrities, but with loved ones that you and I are connected with. Yeah, and there's multiple reasons for this. There's a big time of letting go, of shifting, and also I've gotten that a lot of those souls, they've done what they came here to do, and now it's time for them to work on the other side. And I know this sounds funny, but there's a lot of work that happens on the other side too. So sometimes it's like once your sort of task is done here, you go and you work over there. Mm-hmm. And so, yeah, it's happening. And I do think this is going to continue. I know that there's like, even just from Facebook, people that I know, I've seen a lot of people posting about, people that they've known that have recently passed. And so if this is happening to you or people that just know that they're all still here. I mean, not physically, but as a psychic medium, one of the things I see is how often our loved ones come to visit us after they've crossed, and they spend a lot of, time here. It's different, of course, from their perspective, but this idea and feeling of separation is really more from us, because they don't feel disconnected from us. They are still here and connecting with us a lot.
And I think that's so great what you just said, because for me personally, I know it, and for other people who, it's like that loss. There's been a tremendous amount of change and loss. And I know it's part of the shift. It's just par for the course with it. I mean, the old is dying away in many ways, and to allow space for the new to come in with the higher vibrations and such. So I don't know, so we know they're there. Is there anything else you could say kind of in that realm? Because I know that having consulted people like yourself before has helped me so much to deal with it and to have a better understanding, and opening up to those realms is part of our expansion as well. I mean, it's all working together.
Yeah, absolutely. And if I could just share a quick little thing Spirit wanted me to mention in terms of these changes, that, what's happening is these changes are happening. It's almost like the river is speeding up, flow is happening, change is happening faster, and the importance of letting go of the shore and just riding the flow. Like, just go, don't like try to hold on to things the way they were where you were, because you can't. It's like fighting the current. And in terms of connecting with loved ones, just know they hear us. So they hear our thoughts. I mean, you can literally say it out loud, but if there's a loved one that you want to connect with, you can just set that intention and just ask for them to come visit you. Ask for their help if there's someone that you think can help you in a certain way. And that this isn't limited to people that you knew. I mean, I call on celebrity spirits all the time, and sometimes they just show up as well. But if you're working on something and you can use the help of someone brilliant in their field, call on them. Someone that is particular to feel. Call on Albert Einstein, call on Marilyn Monroe, call on Michael Jackson, or anyone else that you feel like this resonance with. They listen, they hear us, and they're not limited by time and space the way that we are, so they can answer that call.
Yeah, that's a great idea, because their expertise right here or there's expertise. And so that's a great idea to kind of think more practically about it sometimes and go, well, this person might have the answer. Why not go for it and try to, get some information there? That makes sense.
Yeah, and there's also what I call specialty angels. So angels that deal with special topics. So that's the lovely thing. You don't have to know the name of an angel. You can just say, the parking angels or the marketing angels or the relationship angels or whatever it is that you need help with. Ask them for help. And then in terms of asking for help with loved ones, one thing I would ask is, if you're looking for guidance or support, to ask for a spirit that's good in that particular area. So Elizabeth Taylor, for example, love her to death. She might not be the best person to ask for love help with. Right. So ask for help from a guide that's great in that area, just like you would in real life. Like, you want to get guided for someone who works well in that particular area.
Right. No, that's funny, but it's absolutely true. Yeah. Because they're still working out their own soul course as well, right? So it's not like they have everything perfectly figured out.
Right.
That's true. So they're not so unlike us. I think that's, in a way, that helps us to kind of bridge that gap a little bit and to feel more connected, and like it's not so out there or distant. They're not. They're right here with us. It's very intimate.
Yeah. Absolutely. And it's so funny because I've had so many mediumship experiences that are quite funny. One example I'll never forget this, a lot of times people are wanting to connect with a loved one and they're wanting some kind of profound, really important information. And sometimes that does come through. But in this one situation, this woman was asking me to connect with her mother, and we did, and had a conversation. And then she asked if there was any message that her mom really wanted to give her. And the message from her mom was, "Don't give away my fur coats." And it was just so funny. And then the woman said, "Oh my God, that is so my mom." So, it wasn't like anything big life,
right.
value experience or anything. It was about her furs. Anyway, so yeah, just to that point, they still are who they are. That said, they can provide so much love and support for us. They know more than they did when they were here, but they still are, part of that same consciousness.
Exactly. And that's funny with the fur coats. But when you said that also makes me feel like, they're more real. They're more very much like who they were. So that's another kind of connection.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's like, that's the personality. I get it. Okay. Of course. Exactly.
Yeah.
Well, and kind of as we're going through humanity with all of this, could you maybe finish up talking about some guidelines or general messages, or just from that side, from the spiritual realm, the kind of thing that any messages that would help us here in the physical, maybe make it a little bit easier for us?
Yeah, the message that's been coming through a lot is to dream big and not to sort of revise your dreams. So there's a book I'd recommend on this, a psychiatrist named Dr. Lindsay Gibson, who's written several books. She talks about this, where we can have our initial kind of vision and dream for ourselves, and then through societal and maybe family messages, we get that that's maybe not acceptable for one reason or another. So we kind of make a revised vision or dream, which usually is not as exciting, but sometimes we can actually solidly convince ourselves that that's what we want. And so I've seen a lot of people going through this where they have this, like, they really go for this. I want to be this executive, or I want to be whatever. I mean, it's different for every person. And then they get there and there's this kind of disillusionment that happens because it's not it,
Mm-hmm.
and there's a certain element of, that we have to find our satisfaction within ourselves. But that said, if we came here with a soul mission and something we wanted to experience and accomplish, on a soul level, it can be kind of depressing if we're not even trying it, if we're not even like working on it. So I would encourage everybody listening to really check in with themselves and think about, what is it that makes you feel passion? What was your dream as a little kid? I mean, a lot of times these dreams that we have when we were little say so much, but we learn that somehow they're not okay. So for example, when I was little, there were many things. I wanted to be a writer. I remember a family friend asking me what I wanted to be. And I said, I want to be an actress and a writer and a model. And he laughed at me. And, I think he just thought I was precocious, and I don't think he meant anything negative by it. But, we have clues when we're young, and
Yes.
then sometimes we basically decide it's not okay. So just check in with yourselves and see, what is it that really lit you up when you were young? What is it that if like there were no limitations, would you be going after? And a lot of times that's what we really should be going after, even when what we're doing is something completely different.
I love that you said that. And I'm discovering that more myself too. It's like coming again full circle, where our dreams and our inspiration and our creativity as children are really who we are. And that's our soul's mission and our fulfillment. And so it's great to bring that back around in this, to highlight that in this process of ascension, to like remember where we came in, or what we came in with those things. Well, I know we just have a few minutes left.
Right.
Laura, I'm sorry. Oh, we had a lag. I know we've just got a few minutes left. Is there anything you want to leave us with? Any like final message, or you want to let the people know about your information in case they want to get in touch with you on any of this?
Absolutely. Yeah. So one thing I want to share with people is how much support we all have. Like, a lot of times people feel alone. They feel like they're kind of struggling with things without support. And we have so much support on the other side. Like, we all have at least one guardian angel and many other spirit guides that are constantly basically communicating with us and supporting us and available to help us. But many times they're giving us guidance, but until we actively ask for their help, they're just kind of waiting. So I encourage everybody to literally regularly, maybe several times throughout the day, you could do it morning, noon, and night or something, to ask for help. Ask for help for specific.
Laura, can you hear me?
It's almost like going to a restaurant and just asking for food, instead of like placing an order. So ask for help, be specific with what it is that you're looking for, and then be also open to the messages that you're being given, because those messages are usually to try to help us answer those prayers. Like, we're being guided to do something. And I'll give you an example, and I'm going to bring it up because you and I have this Cannon Mine connection.
Yes.
So, which is in Lafayette, Colorado, my hometown, which is an adorable place in East Boulder County in Colorado. And when I was first starting my work as a psychic, I was guided to do readings at Cannon Mine Coffee Shop. And I'll be honest, I really didn't want to do it. So like I was kind of resistant to doing them in public. And I was early on, so I was still a little bit weird about putting myself out there. But after some resistance, I finally did it. And I put up a flyer in the window after asking my friend who owned the coffee shop if I could do it. And literally the first day that I was going to do it, I got a call from the managing editor of the local paper asking if he could write a story about me.
Wow.
So the truth was, it wasn't really about doing the readings at the coffee shop, but I think the angels had been setting this up for me because I had asked the marketing angels for help to get the word out about me as a psychic. And so, 2 days later, there was a full page color write-up with photos of me in the Daily Camera,
That's amazing.
So, these little inclinations, these urges that we get, that they're to help us. So when we get in resistance to that, we find a fight like what it is we actually want.
Mm-hmm.
So paying attention and doing what you can to learn how that works, taking psychic development classes, reading books, using oracle cards. I mean, there's all kinds of ways that you can tap in and get messages for yourself. So that's what I would really encourage. Ask for help and then pay attention to the messages that you receive and then act on them. If people want to learn more about me, I have 6 books out there on different aspects of the psychic realm. On Amazon, you can search my name, Laura Powers. I have an author page there. My website for my psychic work is healingpowers.net. I have also a podcast where we talk about a lot of this stuff. It's really fun. I have a lot of listeners, and it's a really great way to connect with people and encourage people to reach out to me if you have a question, if you're interested in a reading, or I also do psychic development training. Or like I said, if you just have a question or just want to connect, I'm here, and I love to connect with people that are interested in all this stuff.
Fantastic. I'm so glad you said all of that, because I can say psychic mediums have helped me a lot on my own path, and I can't recommend it enough. It is so helpful and so supportive and so opening up. I mean, it helps us to open up and to understand and connect the dots. So I appreciate you being here with us today, Laura, and thank you for your wisdom and your story about Canon Mind. That's still cracking me up, and I love how you I just love it. It's just great.
Yeah, you're so welcome. And, the angels connect us in all kinds of ways. And I know that things are aligned when there's synchronicities like this, and it happens all the time. And it's amazing how these things will pop up. And it always just puts a smile on my face. And it's like a sign from the angels that you're on the right track.
Exactly. Don't forget to watch those signs, because they are out there.
Yeah, exactly. Can I tell a story about a sign? Because I think
Yes.
it's helpful for people to know how concrete it can be. So one thing you can do is you can actually ask the angels to send you signs. You can ask for general signs, but you can also ask for very specific signs for specific questions. So many years ago, this is after, the Canon Mind time, but I've been working as a psychic, and I felt like I was getting guided to raise my prices. And I was a little concerned that I was an ego about it. Like, I didn't want to just raise my prices if it wasn't a really guided thing. And so I asked the angels to just give me a sign that was so clear that I couldn't misunderstand it. So I was driving home from Denver back to Lafayette at that point. And when I got home, there was a magazine in my mailbox, and the cover of it said, it was about prices, and it was titled 10 Reasons Why You Should Raise Your Prices.
Wow.
I was like,
That's concrete.
all right, thanks, angels. That's pretty clear. So you can, on your own, ask for signs, and then just basically pay attention to the universe that's communicating around you.
Yes, exactly. So be specific. Don't forget to ask, and then listen.
Yeah.
Those two things. So
and
simple,
then act
right?
on what you get.
Right. And then act. I know. It's really so simple, but I mean, again, a lot of times we forget, or if we just don't know how to do it, we're not, used to doing it. So we need to just start to learn to do those things. And it's part of the language.
Yes.
Cool. Well, thank you so much again. I really enjoyed this, and I appreciate you speaking to this portion of our ascension process. I think it's so important, and this is something that sooner or later we're all opening up more and more to, and it will become a much more normal part of everyone's world, I think.
Yeah, I think so too. And I'm just getting a little ping from my angels. They want me to say this, so I wasn't going to, but they told me to. That if there's anyone who's interested in getting a discounted reading, that I would offer my short reading at $100, which is $88 cheaper than normal. So if you're interested, just email me, lauramichellepowers@gmail.com, and I'll offer that through the month of April.
Very good. Well, thank you for mentioning that. I think that's a great deal.
Yeah.
Could be very helpful.
You're welcome.
For people.
You're most welcome.
Cool. Good. Well, Laura, thank you again so much. It's so nice to connect with you on here. And
nice to connect with you too.
Yeah, and I appreciate the work you're doing in the world and just helping everyone along this ascension path. It's really, we're all stepping out, we're all doing this, and so I appreciate your part in it very much.
You are most welcome, and thank you for hosting this wonderful platform for sharing information.
Oh yeah, my pleasure. Cool. Well, I guess everybody. We've got just a moment left here, but I want to say thank you for joining us, and I hope this connection is. Can you hear me, Laura, right now?
Yeah, it's breaking up just a little bit, but I can still hear you.
Okay, good. Well, hopefully it won't be too bad on the in recording. We just had a little audio problem there. But anyway, thank you everybody for joining us. Thank you again, Laura. And we will see you soon on the next interview. Thank you, Laura.
Thank you.